say it's my country. Before they give in, they'd rather fuss and fight than say it's my country. I paid 300 years or more. I'm sweating, driving sweat, and wealth so low. This is my country. Too many have died in protecting my freedom. For me to go second place. We've survived the hard blow, and I want you to know that the place us at last. And I know you will give consideration. Shall we perish unjust or live equal as a nation? This is my country. And I know you will give consideration. Shall we perish unjust or live equal as a nation? This is my country.
So if we do a sound check for that, I'm hearing some static.
Beg your pardon?
I'm hearing some static online. We're going to do a sound check real quick.
Testing. 1, 2.
Let's have a wait for it to catch up.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. 1, 2. Just a moment. Testing. 1, 2. Matter of fact, I'll play it again and you see. All right. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, the Truthful, and the Most Just, I greet you all again who have the belief in truth and justice and who hunger and thirst for the true understanding of the Word of God. I greet you all with the greeting of peace from the Lord of the worlds, the God of peace. May Allah's salam alaikum. I told you that I would come back on as long as it took for me to, every day if necessary. As long as it took for me to go through reading the Constitution in hopes to interest you in going and getting a copy of it and studying it for yourself. Or I should say familiarizing yourself with it. So that if Allah please, He would help you to see the truth of what those who lead this nation, the United States of America, what they pledge when they pledge to uphold the Constitution and to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. You notice they didn't pledge to build a wall. They pledged to defend the Constitution, because the Constitution is what defends a nation of immigrants from someone who may seek to make mischief in this nation, even in this government. Because it's only so much mischief you can make when people understand that like Glenn Beck reminded everybody of, that the United States is a nation of laws, not of men. So it don't make no difference what man gets in charge. In the final analysis, whether he gets in charge or not can be manifest by how much he respects the Constitution, and he can show how much he respects the Constitution by what he promises that he's going to do if he gets in office, or what he stands up and says he wants to do. Because if he wants to do something that the Constitution has already forbade, then you know that the man cannot be intending or upholding the Constitution, so you know he don't belong in that office. Do you understand? So I think I will begin with where we left off last night. The Founding Fathers. The United States Constitution brought together in one remarkable document ideas from many people and several existing documents, including the Articles of Confederation and Declaration of Independence. In other words, the Constitution combined what was in the Declaration of Independence and in the Articles of Confederation. Those who made significant intellectual contributions to the Constitution are called the quote unquote Founding Fathers. Just like in Islam, the prophets are the founding fathers of the Holy Scriptures. Do you understand? And that tells you that all of the things that's in the Scriptures wasn't going to even be done while the founding fathers were still founding, laying the foundation for the kingdom of God on earth. That's why in the book of 2 Peter, it says, now since the fathers fell asleep, remember Lazarus was dead? He was sleeping. And so since the fathers fell asleep, all things continued as they were from the beginning of the creation. And so what creation? From the beginning of the creation of the jinn, of the devil. And the prophets were the founding fathers for what was to come after the 6,000-year period that was given to the devil to rule. Do you understand? Okay. So it says, those who made significant intellectual contributions to the Constitution are called the quote unquote founding fathers of our country. Many of the founding fathers were at the Constitutional Convention, where the Constitution was hammered out and ratified. George Washington, for example, presided over the convention. James Madison, also present, wrote the document that formed the model for the Constitution. Founding fathers were not there, but made significant contributions in other ways. Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence, was serving as ambassador to France at the time of the convention. He kept abreast of the proceedings in Philadelphia by carrying on correspondence with James Madison. John Adams, as ambassador to Great Britain, wrote, "Defense of the Constitution of the Government of the United States of America." Thomas Paine, John Adams wrote, and quote, "Defense of the Constitution of the Government of the United States of America," unquote. That was John Adams wrote that. Then he said Thomas Paine wrote the influential pamphlet, Common Sense. And that's the name of the pamphlet that he wrote, Common Sense, which immeasurably influenced the philosophy reflected in the Declaration of Independence. One of the founding fathers, Patrick Henry, was initially opposed to the very idea of the Constitution. He wanted to keep the Articles of Confederation, the predecessor to the Constitution. However, when an agreement was made to add a Bill of Rights to the Constitution, Patrick Henry, fought hard for its ratification. The term framers is sometimes used to specify those who helped craft the Constitution. No, you know how you say, what are those? I see they done laid the foundation. When are they going to begin framing it? They was talking about framing up the house, meaning start the building it, you know, and putting up the skeleton for which was going to really be the walls and things of the house, right? So framing the Constitution was also building it up. Do you understand? And he says, the term framers is sometimes used to specify those who helped craft or build the Constitution. Founding fathers often refers to people who contributed to the development of independence and nationhood. However, the notion of a framer or a founding father is not easily defined. Well, that's because sometimes the founding father was also one who helped frame the Constitution. And so he was both, you know. And it says, when the following sections of the book talk about founding fathers, they are describing people who had a significant impact on the Constitution, either directly or indirectly. The list is by no means complete, but it does identify people who played a large role in the development of the Constitution at this crucial time in American history. Now, understand something. It's just like when you cannot, even though the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was at the head, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad didn't build the Nation of Islam by himself. He had lots of helpers. Do you understand? Yes. So you don't name all of the helpers, but when you name Elijah, then all of the helpers, you may know that, you know, it was a united effort. You understand? And that's what he's saying about America. George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and a few of them, the founding fathers that was mentioned, that wasn't all of the founding fathers. That was just some of them who were in prominent or more prominent positions. Do you understand? Okay. Fascinating facts about 6 founding fathers. Oh, by the way, I know it's maybe a few of white people listening. And if you hear something that is not factual that's in this book, feel free to jump in, especially those of you who are students of the history of your country. I would welcome your input. It said George Washington from 1732 to 1799, the highest political office, which was president, from 1789 to 1797. Other accomplishments. This is giving you some facts about George Washington now and some of the other founding fathers. Right now we're on George Washington. He led the colonial forces in the Revolutionary War. The staid portraits of George Washington accurately reflect the personality of the father of the nation. He was a man of few words, whose political ascension was attributable to his strength of character rather than his intellect. You know, many people think that what makes a man is how much school or how much education he's had, and of refined education. But that's not the real strength of a man. A man's real strength is not his intellectual prowess, because anyone can accomplish that studies books. But manhood is determined by the character of the individual. The simple thing like being truthful. And not just being truthful, but being upright, uprightly truthful. Knowing the proper code of conduct that is conducive to reflecting a godly nature, as opposed to an ungodly nature. If you don't know both, if you don't understand good and evil, then you are ill-equipped to know how to conduct yourself. Do you understand? So, anyway, it says George Washington, he was a huge man for his day. Washington stood 6 feet 3.5 inches tall, with enormous hands. Washington had pockmarked skin as a result of teenage case of smallpox, and a shy disposition that was the result of a domineering mother. Twice he proposed to women, and twice he was rejected. He finally married Martha Curtis, the richest widow in Virginia. It's kind of amazing how men that were kind of prominent in history, a lot of them wind up marrying women that had means. You know, like Prophet Muhammad, when he married Khadijah, she was a wealthy woman, you know. And, but anyway, he had lost almost all his teeth by the time he was president, leaving him with badly sunken cheeks that were stuffed with cotton for portraits. Contrary to popular belief, George Washington never had wooden teeth. His teeth were made mostly of lead, fitted or cattle and hippopotamus teeth. Some were carved from elephant and walrus tusks. In his will, he freed all 300 of his slaves permanently. The popular tale of Washington and the cherry tree, historians say, was almost certainly untrue. You know, as he chopped down the cherry tree, and he said, I cannot tell a lie, I did it. You know, everybody knows that you don't, that is a, you know, most people don't, the youngsters today probably weren't aware, but you don't cut down a fruit tree. Why would you cut down a tree that could sustain your life? That don't make no sense. You know, so they don't, you know, you don't cut down fruit trees. Then it says, his politics. Washington was a Federalist, so he favored a strong central government. He also, well, I guess he wouldn't agree with these people today, huh? Grover Norquist was talking about he want to reduce the government down to the size it can fit in a bathtub. But a strong government is not a strong government because of how many people. A strong government is strong by how many people of character are in control of it. Do you understand? And of good character. And it says, he also had a strong affinity for aristocrats. During the, it is generally in a, what you may call circle of prosperous people with integrity, then you used to could have judged a person's intelligence by how much wealth they possessed. Not so today, but there was a time when it used to mean something that, well, he must not be too stupid because he's a wealthy man. But that went along, that statement coming from people of good character, people who respect law, people who respect uprightness. You notice Job was a wealthy man. David was a king. Solomon was a king. You know, Jesus was not poor, contrary to popular belief. Jesus' father was a carpenter, and he was not the poorest of people. Otherwise, how could Jesus learn how to read? There were no public schools. So, during the Constitutional Convention, he spent much of his time at the mansion of Robert Morris, the richest man in America. His closest political ally was Alexander Hamilton, whose policies inevitably leaned toward the upper classes. Washington was the only president to win unanimous approval of all of the votes cast. It says by the Electoral College. He did it twice. Why was that? Because people were not interested in what you call political advantages and stuff. They were interested in what's best for America. And as long as they had a man in there that was doing, and they felt comfortable was doing what was best for America, they didn't care how long they kept him in there. It says, in office, Washington served the nation best by keeping the government stable. He advocated a strong national defense and kept the country out of the escalating tension between England and France. My name is Wes, and I ain't in that mess. No, I ain't finna get involved with either one of you because I like both of you. So I'm out of that, right? Worst thing you can do to a friend is invite your friend to take sides when the person that they are in dispute with is also your friend. You said, don't put me in that position. Unless you want to come to the table of reason and then we go somewhere in private. And then I would tell you, if you put all your cards on the table and show me all of the things that you're squabbling over, I'll tell you what's right and what's not, and you don't have to tell me which of you is doing it. But I will tell you what I know to be in my heart, what I believe to be right. And then you can decide which of you is right. Do you understand? So his health failing, Washington begged out of the presidency after one term. Men from both sides of the political fence urged him to remain in office. However, they urged him to remain in office, however, so he stayed on. His second inaugural address may reveal his enthusiasm for the second term. At 133 words. That was his inaugural address. 133 words. That's almost what they used to get 90 words on what's that, Twitter? He almost could have fit that in Twitter. That was his address that he gave after he was inaugurated. So he wasn't in no big hurry to be president no more. And it is the shortest inaugural address in history. Closest crony among the founding fathers, Alexander Hamilton. What he said, and this is I assume this was Washington's inaugural address. He says, "Government is not reason, it is not eloquence. It is a force, like fire. It is a dangerous servant and a fearful master. Never for a moment should it be left to irresponsible action." George Washington was a wise man, wasn't he? And he says, now James Madison I don't know if they are attributing that statement to George Washington or Alexander Hamilton, but I'll just read it as the book says. Closest crony among the founding fathers, Alexander Hamilton, what he said. Government is not reason, it is not eloquence, it is force. Like fire. What's another word for force? Power. It is force. Like fire, it is a dangerous servant and a fearful master. Never for a moment should it be left to irresponsible action. Irresponsible action is when you know, it's kind of like why the commercial come on today. Man said that if the president gives the order to launch a nuclear strike, it will be done within 4 minutes. There's no questioning it. Therefore, before putting a man in that office, you want to make sure that that man would never act irresponsibly on an emotion, on a whim, that he act without actually having good reason. Do you understand? So, James Madison, 1751 through 1836. And he held the highest political office, the President of the United States, from 1809 to 1817. 2 terms. Other accomplishments of Mr. Madison was he helped draft Virginia's state constitution when he was 25. Virginia's constitution later became the model for the United States Constitution. Served as Jefferson's Secretary of State. He served as Secretary of State also. And it says, Madison was a soft-spoken and tiny man, about 5'4" tall, and less than 100 pounds. Even his nickname was diminutive, Jimmy. That was his nickname, Jimmy. He was too small to serve in the Revolutionary War and turned to politics instead. Madison, the father of the Constitution, the most important legal document in modern history, never received a law degree. See, I told you that the Constitution wasn't really founded by lawyers. But you can tell it's an inspired document. That's why God said he would judge. Well, why did he say, and also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge? Because he also asked the question, who is he that judgeth another man's servant? This nation, the United States of America, served Allah's purpose. He brought it into existence to serve the purpose that he wanted it to serve. That's why I warned you. It's just like Mike Pence. You playing around here and pushing, trying to secretly push Donald Trump so that he can keep his promise to you on you gonna be the secret president. Right? That plane could have slid on off and didn't have to land. You know, Allah can send a wind. You notice they got planes that say they be landing, and all of a sudden a downdraft hit them, and that's it. You don't really realize how vulnerable you all are. All of you. You want to run game on the American people. And the American people is where, you know that song where it says, I can fly higher than an eagle, but you the wind beneath my wings? The American people is the wind beneath all your wings. They lift you up and you see how far down you can push them. You low down, man. You want to know how low down people can be? Just let them think you ignorant. and watch how they act. Anyway, let's go back to this. Even in his 40s, Madison was a lonely and single man. That changed when Aaron Burr introduced him to Dolly Todd. The couple married when Madison was 43 and never had children. Dolly Madison earned a place in history when she stole away from the White House with crucial government documents and a portrait of George Washington as the British stormed the Capitol during the War of 1812. Madison outlived all of the other founding fathers. He died at the age of 85 in June 1836. His politics, his presidency, this was his political history. His presidency was marred by the War of 1812, the only war in which U.S. soil was overrun by enemy forces. The war was precipitated by the widespread sentiment that the United States was destined to conquer Canada, then a British territory. Aside from the war that nearly cost him his re-election, Madison's 2 terms were also memorable for the fact that both of his vice presidents died while in office. Closest crony among the founding fathers, Jefferson and Madison were close friends throughout their lives. Madison was Jefferson's protege. After their presidencies, each many days at the other's estate. Jefferson named one of the bedrooms in Monticello Mr. Madison's room. What he said, on the War of 1812, this is what President James Madison said, on the War of 1812, I flung forward the flag of the country, sure that the people would press onward and defend it. Under the new Constitution, the nation's powers will be derived from the superior power of the people. Not of conquest, in other words. Do you understand? It says, Thomas Jefferson is the next one. Thomas Jefferson from 1743 to 1826, in the highest political office, president, and he was president from 1801 to 1809. Other accomplishments. He wrote the Declaration of Independence and served as minister to France, a pivotal diplomatic position. As the Constitution was being drafted, Jefferson was nicknamed Long Tom because he stood 6 feet 2.5 inches tall with long, slender limbs. He had carrot red hair that paled with age. A fiddle player, fiddle is violin, a fiddle player, Jefferson wooed his wife with violin serenades. Jefferson eschewed the uniforms of nobility, choosing instead to dress himself in sometimes dirty and tattered clothing. Although his wife died at the age of 33, Jefferson never remarried. He did, however, allegedly father 5 children by Sally Hemings, one of his slaves. Jefferson suffered from migraine headaches throughout his life and bathed his feet in cold water daily to avoid colds. He was the quintessential Renaissance man and has been described as a lawyer, a linguist, a diplomat, an astronomer, a naturalist, a political philosopher, educator, statesman, president, farmer, musician, scientist, inventor, agriculturalist, a horseman, geographer, theologian, paleontologist. Jefferson was fluent in Greek, Latin, French, Spanish, Italian, and German. He was a supporter of equal rights and education for women, the right of all to have a free public education, a free library system, and the creation of a decimal system of weights and measures. He is also considered one of the preeminent architects in the history of the country. Jefferson was pretty heavy, man. Now, his politics, Jefferson was a Republican, which at the time was the party of the common man. He envisioned a nation built on agriculture, not industry. The formal name for the Republican Party was the Democratic Republican Party, from which our present day Democratic Party evolved. The Republican Party of today was created in 1854 by the joining of anti-slavery Democrats, the Free Soil Party, and factions of the Whig Party. The formal name of the opposing party, led by Alexander Hamilton, was the Federalist Party. Jefferson was renowned for being a terrible public speaker due to a speech impediment, although he is certainly regarded as one of the most gifted writers ever to hold the office of the presidency. He alone wrote the first draft of the Declaration of Independence. He doubled the land size of the United States when he made the Louisiana Purchase from Napoleon. Napoleon needed cash to conquer Europe. Jefferson wanted the land to safeguard against a future French invasion and to encourage his vision of America being a land of small, independent yeoman farmers. The selling price was $15 million. That's how much Louisiana costs. Yeah, man, but $15 million was a lot of money back then. Says, after his 2 terms as president, Jefferson retired to his Virginia estate, Monticello. He spent much of his time pursuing his dream of establishing a university. The dream was realized when he founded the University of Virginia. Closest crony among the founding fathers. Although his closest friend among the founding fathers was James Madison, Jefferson's most memorable friendship was with John Adams. The friendship developed when they both worked on the committee that was responsible for the Declaration of Independence. Their friendship turned to a bitter rivalry, however, when they joined opposing political parties. They reconciled after both finished their presidencies, and they kept up a steady correspondence. They both died on July 4th, 1826. Sir? Yes, sir.
He said a story about a bunch of devils.
Look, brother, you don't have to be in here. Nobody forced you to come in here. If you don't have any, see, that's your problem. You want people to sit up and listen to you talk about great black men and whatnot. You know, you would like respect shown to your people. At least that's the lie you tell. While you think it's okay to disrespect other people. And the Holy Quran teaches that if you find people worshiping a false god, it says, do not abuse their gods. I mean, don't be disrespectful. Lest in ignorance, they abuse Allah. I remember, you think like Malcolm X. When President Kennedy got murdered, people say assassinated. That's just a softer way of putting it. When President Kennedy was murdered, Malcolm X got out there after the messenger had told all of his ministers, because he knew how ignorant we were. He said, I don't want any of you to say anything about the death of the president. They come out and put a microphone in Malcolm's face. Malcolm, what do you think about the assassination of the president? He said, well, it's words to this effect. Malcolm goes popping off. He ignoring what the messenger said about, you just don't comment on that. He starts talking about, well, you know, being an old farm boy myself, I know that when I send my chickens out in the morning, and in the evening they're gonna come home to roost. And so, you know, you can't expect that all of this climate of, you know, hate and everything that's been done in the country. And then, so now you see you reaping that. The American people, black and white people, grieving over the death of President Kennedy, and he out there calling it a case of the chickens coming home to roost. When the Honorable Elijah Muhammad passed away, I didn't hear no white people get on the news. If they was rejoicing in private, that's their business. But they didn't come out in the public disrespecting what had happened. Now you want to come in here, you upset because was what you just said to me, was that a righteous man's? Is that the way righteous people talk? Call in here and tell me what's wrong with what I'm doing. Especially since you came back in here. What did I say last night I was going to do? I told you I had a little book that I was going to read to you. It's the Constitution and the history of, you know, the founding fathers and everything. If you didn't care to hear that, why are you in here? You know what the messenger did after Malcolm went out and made a fool out of himself like that? The messenger put an apology of sort in Muhammad's speech. And he said that when Minister Malcolm said what he said about our president, about the death of the president, he said he was not speaking for the Nation of Islam. He was speaking for himself. But we of the Nation of Islam mourned the death of our president. And he said, our president. It was bad enough for white people to think we was teaching hate. But you know what the real truth was? Many people in the nation thought we was teaching hate. Well, you might have thought that's what it was, but that ain't what it was. We were teaching the truth. And you know, you got some people that go around picking up trash on trash day all day long. And if you, where now in certain parts of the country, they don't have to get out their truck. The truck do it all. But there's still garbage men in this part of the country. They have to go and pick up your trash can and dump it. You have to pick up your paper, and they own that smelly truck all day. And if they come around you sometime, they may not smell so good. And I guess many of you would say, knowing that he worked on a garbage truck, knowing that, and he walk up, you wouldn't have no better sense than to tell him how bad he smelled. Man, you stink. But you sure did, and you didn't say don't go jump my trash though, did you? Did you? You didn't have no problem with him dumping your trash, but you got a problem with the way your trash made him smell. The messenger said this. He said, if you say, there goes the devil, then don't try patterning yourself after the devil. Show the devil that you are a righteous person, because he's watching you for such. And then before you could open your mouth with some more mockery of him, the messenger said, and if you say he's not righteous, he will tell you, I was not my maker. And that'll stop your mouth. Because, you know, if you want to go and tell him how evil he is, he could very easily tell you, well, you made me yourself. So you want to go around and blame me for how you made me. So if you don't like me reading the history of the founding fathers, because they white people, well, you ain't got to listen. Just go on. But don't you type no more insults in here. You may not have civilized knowledge, but I do. That's one thing that W.D. Muhammad didn't lie about. And Allah made him share it with me back in the 70s. He said, the devil wear colors like you do clothes. You know? You ought to be ashamed of yourself. But in order to be ashamed of yourself, you have to have some type of moral uprightness in you. I guess you would like me to be standing up here calling somebody bagel eating, hook nose, and all that old kind of stuff. Well, you're in the wrong arena for that. Men of God don't go around insulting people. Or haven't you read the 23rd Psalms? Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me. not a visible flame. Anyway, let's see where I left off here. So it says, they both died on July 4th, 1826, 50 years to the day after the signing of the Declaration of Independence. On the day he died, Adams opened his eyes and whispered his last words. Thomas Jefferson lives. Jefferson had died earlier that day. What he said, a little rebellion now and then is a good thing. Science is my passion, and politics is my duty. That's what Jefferson said. And now John Adams, 1735 to 1826. And he held the highest political office, which is the presidency of the United States. And other accomplishments was first vice president. He helped draft the Declaration of Independence. He was the first vice president. And he helped draft the Declaration of Independence and negotiated the peace agreement with Great Britain to end the Revolutionary War. He served as minister to Great Britain, nicknamed Atlas of American Independence. John Adams was a short 5'7", plump man with an ego as big as his waistline. He felt it was beneath him to shake hands with anyone. He bowed instead. Adams was not alone in this practice, however. George Washington also preferred to bow rather than shake hands. That's more an Oriental custom. Anyway, born and raised in what is now Quincy, Massachusetts, Adams was a lawyer by trade. He was the first president to occupy the White House. The nation moved its capital from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. during his administration. Now, in his politics, Adams was a Federalist, and as such, he held a more elitist view of government than his Republican rivals. The first truly defense-minded president, Adams built the U.S. Navy to the point where it could compete with that of any nation. Probably his most enduring political legacy involved appointing John Marshall as Supreme Court Chief Justice, the most ignominious. His signing of the, I'm gonna have to go back later and look up that word. His signing of the Alien and Sedition Acts, which made it a crime to criticize the government, for which violators could be imprisoned. Well, you know that wouldn't go for us. But anyway.
Deserving or causing public disgrace or shame.
Oh yes, yeah, he did something that was that's about it. That was unconstitutional anyway, because it infringed on a person's freedom of speech. Adams was most proud of the fact that he avoided war with France at the turn of the century, in the face of strong public opinion in favor of war. This along with his perceived overspending on defense led to his defeat in his re-election campaign. the closest crony among the founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson was, by turns, both his closest crony and most loathed political enemy. They ended their lives as friends, dying on the same day, 50 years after the signing of the Declaration of Independence. See the fascinating facts about Thomas Jefferson. What he said: let the human mind loose. It must be loosed. It will be loosed. Superstition and despotism cannot confine it. Despotism is just a softer word for tyranny. Benjamin Franklin, 1706 to 1790, highest political office, minister to France. Other accomplishments. Franklin was one of the three Americans to sign the peace treaty with England that ended the Revolutionary War. He also helped write the Declaration of Independence and was the oldest delegate at the Constitutional Convention of the Founding Fathers. Franklin was easily the most unusual character. He made enough money from his publishing business, primarily on receipts from Poor Richard's Almanac, to retire at age 42. He then devoted his life to writing, science, and politics. Among his many inventions, Franklin created bifocal glasses. He did so because he didn't like to carry two pairs of glasses with him. Franklin had one illegitimate son, William, who became the governor of New Jersey. William supported the British in the Revolution, which resulted in the permanent estrangement of father and son. His politics. Franklin's political activism had peaked long before the American party system fully evolved, but he was philosophically closest to the tenets of the Democratic Republican Party. He was suspicious of strong central governments and governors, be they kings or presidents. Indeed, Franklin advocated a three-person presidential committee rather than having a single president, of the proposal to have a one-man president, he said. The government is likely to be well administered for a course of years and can only end in despotism. Nonetheless, in Franklin's will, he bequeathed his walking stick to President Washington. Franklin had a restless and ravenous mind. He eschewed normal work patterns, preferring instead to set his own pace and ignore appointments if he was interested enough in a conversation. He also possessed the largest private library in America. Not all of his ideas won wide acceptance. A case in point, Franklin's choice for the national bird was the turkey. Closest crony or friend among the founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson. When Franklin died, Jefferson implored President Washington to hold a day of mourning. Washington balked, not wishing to set a precedent. What he said: our Constitution is in actual operation. Everything appears to promise that it will last. But in this world, nothing is certain but death and taxes. At the conclusion of the Constitutional Convention, Franklin observed the symbol of the sun at the top of George Washington's chair and mused, I have the happiness to know it is a rising sun and not a setting sun. Alexander Hamilton was next. It says, these are talking about the people who signed the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and were behind the drafting of the Constitution, everybody that I'm talking about here. So everybody wasn't no president. It says Alexander Hamilton, 1755 to 1804. His highest political office was Treasury Secretary. Other accomplishments, along with Madison and John Jay, authored the Federalist Papers. Now, I tell you, I want to show you how and why what you probably missing in this is why America has had a great degree of blessings from God. You see how they remember their fathers?
Yes, sir.
You see how they respect them?
Yes, sir.
What we do to ours, try to write them out of history, start saying they wasn't nothing. Man worked for you for 40-something years, and then how you thinking? It didn't tell him. You told him you believe he was the messenger of God while he was here. And when he ain't here no more, then you don't know nothing good to say about him. You got everything to say about him that you didn't say while he was here. You use him and then you throw him away like an old beer can. You know, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught me to respect those who did something to try to help me. Then when the name Marcus Garvey came up in the messengers meeting, he brought it up, and he said that Allah told him that Marcus Garvey loved you all. He said, but he lacked the knowledge of how to get you up. Then he said, Noble Drew Ali, he loved you too. And he too lacked the knowledge. He said, but now the job, they have all gone and the job is left to you and me. He said, when I have finished teaching you, you will be able to get them all. He was talking to me then. It's nobody who will sit and listen to me and is willing to reason with me and argue with me that I can't eventually get you to recognize and see things my way. Because I know my way is better than your way. Even when you say that you believe in Islam, do you know what the significance of Islam is? The significance of Islam is that it is the way of peace. There is no such thing as an unrighteous Muslim. There's a whole lot of people running around calling themselves Muslims. But it's more to being a Muslim than calling yourself one. A Muslim is a righteous human being. A Muslim is a person who submits to the will of God, and God's will is peace. That's why when a Muslim meets you, whenever a prophet was speaking to the people, the first thing he said to them was, may God's peace be unto you. And then as he began to speak to them, he began to give them words that, if followed, would bring them that peace that he wished to them. You cannot go around insulting people and then expect those same people that you insult to respect you. And if they were already insulting you, by you doing it back, you justified what they did. You think it make you look big? Just you know, you got to show that you what? You ain't scared of white folks. I ain't scared of white people either. But I don't have to go insult them to prove that. I correct him. And not only do I correct him, I show him that I mean it when I offer correction. I don't tell him to stop practicing evil and stop mistreating me, and then I turn around and mistreat him and try to justify it by saying, well, that's what you did to me. And remember, you came in here where I am. As the messenger said when he asked Allah about the sun, he said that he got up and he stood up and looked at him when he appeared to him in the person of Master Farad Muhammad and was teaching him. He stood up and looked at him and said, and kind of sternly, he said, and if you ask me that question again, I'm not going to visit you no more. And the messenger said he looked like he said, I wonder why I couldn't ask him that. Well, first of all, the scripture says, no man knows who the Son is but the Father. And if you want to understand the Son, then the only one who can understand the Son is the Father. And he's not going to give you to understand them. Do you understand? And so you never will understand what makes that Son out there do what it do. That Son wasn't made for you to understand it. That Son is a symbol of the truth that vision comprehends him not, but he comprehends our vision. Do you understand? And so, but anyway, he said the Son is attractive enough to force every planet within its reach to bow, meaning to turn and circle it. But no planet is attractive enough to force the sun to bow. The sun revolves around nothing but God himself. And likewise, you notice, you don't never find me over in somebody else's arena listening to them. They don't have nothing attractive enough to get me over into their arena. But even those who hate me, they got to keep coming in here listening. Do you understand? And get angry when they find me making peace where they couldn't make no peace. Huh? Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Is that right? There you go. So now let's get back here and read some more. I left off on Alexander Hamilton, didn't I? From Hamilton was consumed by his passion for a nation built around a strong and fiscally stable central government. He was born out of wedlock in the West Indies and moved to the colonies at the age of 17. His father, a Scottish trader, went bankrupt when Hamilton was 15, and the boy went to work in a counting house to help support the family. Fresh out of Columbia University, Hamilton organized artillery regiments in New York for the Revolutionary War. And from 1779 to 1781, he was Washington's chief aide. When Washington assumed the presidency, he named Hamilton Secretary of the Treasury. Ironically, before Washington was elected president, Hamilton was one of a group of politicians who felt that the U.S. needed a king. The group wrote to Prussia's Prince Henry and asked if he wanted the job. Before he replied, the group changed its mind. His politics. Hamilton was the one who most advocated an elitist political vision. He believed that the intellectual aristocracy should rule the nation. Hamilton's political legacy is embodied in the Federal Bank. He led the effort to establish the first such bank, which he saw as critical for sustaining the government's fragile finances. His opponents saw the bank as an evil tool for expanding the power of the federal government at the expense of the states. Hamilton is regarded as the father of the national debt because he felt that a national debt was really a blessing. The more money the government owed to the people of the country, the more the people had a stake in the success of the country. When Jefferson ran for president in 1800, he and Aaron Burr, both Republicans, tied. The election went to the Federalist-controlled House. Hamilton, founder of the Federalist Party, convinced his colleagues to elect Jefferson over Burr. Burr then campaigned for governor of New York in 1804. Again, Hamilton swayed voters against Burr. Finally, Burr challenged Hamilton to a duel. Fatally wounded by his rival, Hamilton died one day later. Well, that's one way to end it. He said, you see what kind of savagery and civilization was having a tug of war. Savagery and civilization. Do you understand? So, closest crony among the founding fathers, George Washington. That was Hamilton's closest friends. Now, what he said, George Washington, the sacred rights of mankind are not to be rummaged for among all parchments or musty records. They are written a sunbeam in the whole volume of human nature by the hand of divinity itself, and can never be erased or obscured by mortal power or knowledge. Okay? And George Washington wasn't no dummy, was. In other words, if you think that you can legislate away the freedoms of human dignity and the freedoms and human dignity of men and women, you definitely living in a universe other than this one. God is the God of freedom, justice, and equality. And as it is written in the Holy Bible, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. So, If you don't believe that's the truth, just look at Donald Trump. All the past 7 years, Congress been sowing the wind. Just lying, one lie after another on the first black president. And now they've reaped the whirlwind. A man who every time he opened his mouth, lying, and he's at the head of the very people, the very party that concocted all them lies against President Obama. And now they got a liar at the top of their ticket. Got nothing but liars. What kind of people represent liars? Other liars. More fascinating facts about the Founding Fathers. George Washington was born on February 11, 1732, but in 1751, Great Britain changed from the Julian to the Gregorian calendar. An act of Parliament added 11 days to make the adjustment complete. And in 1752, Washington celebrated his birthday on February the 22nd because of that different calendar. Next, once Gouverneur Morris was offered a bet of one dinner. Somebody bet him a dinner if he would approach George Washington, slap him on the back, and give him a friendly greeting. He wanted to show people how close he was to the chief. Morris carried out the bet, but later admitted that after seeing the cold stare from Washington, he wouldn't do it again for 1,000 dinners. I don't like people slapping me on the back either. You know, don't come up slapping me on my back. Just, you want to shake hands, you shake hands or whatever. But don't touch me without my permission. Of the Founding Fathers who became president, only George Washington did not go to college. John Adams graduated from Harvard. James Madison graduated from Princeton, and Thomas Jefferson attended the College of William and Mary. George Washington didn't go to college. Now, John Adams was the first president to live in the White House when he came to Washington, D.C. in November of 1800. However, he was only there for 4 months after losing the election of 1800 to Thomas Jefferson. Washington Irving described James Madison as a withered little Applejohn, and his wife Dolly as a fine, portly, buxom dame. The Marquis of Lafayette, the Marquis de Lafayette thought so much of George Washington that he named his son George Washington Lafayette. George Washington gave the shortest inauguration speech in American history on March 4th, 1793. It was only 133 words long. William Henry Harrison gave the longest at 8,443 words on March 4th, 1841. On a cold and blustery day in Washington, D.C., he died 1 month later of a severe cold. The man was president for 1 month. That's rich. John Adams died on July 4th, 1826, at the age of 90 years, 247 days. He had the longest marriage of any ex-president. He and Abigail were married October 25th, 1764, and the marriage lasted 54 years. His wife died in 1818. Upon graduating from Harvard, John Adams became a grammar school teacher. My little school, like the great world, is made up of kings, politicians, diviners, buffoons, fiddlers, fools, coxcombs, sycophants, chimney sweeps, and every other character I see in the world. I would rather sit in school and consider which of my pupils will turn out to be a hero, and which a rake, which a philosopher, and which one a parasite, than to have an income of £1,000 a year. Thomas Jefferson sometimes spent $50 a day, about $846 today, for groceries because of his lavish entertaining. The wine bill for the 8 years he served as president was $11,000, about $186,000 today. He was also the first president to grow tomatoes in North America. Thomas Jefferson died broke. Before his death, Jefferson was able to alleviate part of his financial problems by accepting $25,000 for his books from Congress. Those books were used to begin the Library of Congress. Friends even tried to organize a lottery to sell part of his land to help, but it was not enough. When Jefferson died, he left my gold-mounted walking staff of animal horn as a token of cordial and of affectionate friendship to James Madison. Jefferson's epitaph read, "Here was buried Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration of Independence, of the Statute of Virginia for religious freedom, and the father of the University of Virginia." It didn't include President of the United States. Well, that's something they should go and correct on his headstone. But anyway, James Madison of Virginia was responsible for proposing the resolution to create the various cabinet positions within the executive branch of our government and 12 amendments to the Constitution, of which 10 became the Bill of Rights. He also proposed that congressional pay be determined by the average price of wheat during the previous 6 years of a congressional session. Although it is common knowledge that George Washington called for the emancipation of his slaves in his last will and testament, he stipulated that it would only take place upon the death of his wife, Martha. However, in Martha's will, she did not free the slaves. The original intent was for George Washington to be buried beneath the rotunda floor under the dome of the Capitol. He died before the rotunda was finished, and in 1828, the crypt was covered up. President George Washington would bow to guests at presidential receptions to avoid physical contact. This tradition lasted through the presidency of John Adams. Washington would rest one hand on a sword while holding a hat in the other to avoid the remote possibility of anyone forcing a handshake. Thomas Jefferson ended the tradition of bowing by shaking hands when greeting people. Thomas Jefferson, at 83 years of age, felt that he would not live through the summer of 1826, but he hoped to live through July 4th, the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Both he and John Adams died on July 4th, 1826. After long and distinguished careers, they had earlier been friends, then political enemies, and by the end of their lives had maintained a steady correspondence. Adams' last words were, "Thomas Jefferson lives," not knowing that Jefferson had expired earlier that day in Virginia. Jefferson's last words were, "Is it the 4th? I resign my spirit to God, my daughter, and my country." President James Monroe also died on July 4th. He died on July 4th, 1831, 5 years after Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. When George Washington died on December 14th, 1799, his last words were, "I die hard, but I am not afraid to go. Let me go quietly. I cannot last long. It is well." Alexander Hamilton was killed by Aaron Burr in a duel in Weehawken, New Jersey on July 12, 1804. Hamilton's son, Philip, had died in a duel 3 years earlier, 1801, at the same location. Benjamin Franklin died on April 17th, 1790. His daughter asked him to change positions on his bed to improve his breathing. And his last words were, "A dying man can do nothing easy." Benjamin Franklin died on April 17th, 1790 at the age of 84. The 20,000 mourners at his funeral on April 21st, 1790 constituted the largest public gathering up to that time. Signers of the Constitution. The 39 delegates who signed the Constitution and what happened to them after 1787. On September 1787, the Constitutional Convention came to a close in the Assembly Room of Independence Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. There were 70 individuals chosen to attend the meetings with the initial purpose of amending the Articles of Confederation, and opted to not send any delegates. 55 men attended most of the meetings. There were never more than 46 present at any one time. Only 39 delegates actually signed the Constitution. William Jackson, who was the secretary of the convention, but not a delegate, also signed the Constitution. John Delaware was absent, but had another delegate sign for him. While offering incredible contributions, George Mason of Virginia, Edmund Randolph of Virginia, and Elbridge Gerry of Massachusetts refused to sign the final document because of basic philosophical differences. Mainly, they were fearful of an all-powerful government and wanted a Bill of Rights added to protect the rights of the people. The following is a list of those individuals who signed the Constitution, along with a brief bit of information concerning what happened to each person after 1787. Many of those who signed the Constitution went on to serve more years in public service under the new form of government. The states are listed in alphabetical order, followed by each state's signers. State and signers. Connecticut, William S. Johnson, 1727 and from 1727 to 1819. That was the stretch of his life. He became the president of Columbia College, formerly known as King's College, and was then appointed as a United States Senator in 1789. He resigned from the Senate in 1791 to return to Columbia. He retired from education in 1800. Roger Sherman, 1721 to 1793. He campaigned strongly for the ratification of the Constitution and served as a United States representative from 1789 to 1791 and senator from 1791 to 1793 until his death in 1793 at the age of 72. Richard Bassett, from 1745 to 1815. He was appointed as a United States Senator from Delaware, 1789 to 1793, and was instrumental in the organization of the judiciary of the United States. He favored moving the nation's capital from New York City to Washington, District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., and was opposed to Alexander Hamilton's plan of the assumption of state debts by the federal government. After his retirement from the Senate, he devoted the rest of his life to public affairs in Delaware. He was elected governor of Delaware from 1799 to 1801. Gunning Bedford, Jr., 1747 to 1812. President Washington appointed him for the first United States District Judge for the state of Delaware in 1789, a position he held until his death in 1812. Jacob Broome, from 1752 to 1810. Broome became the first postmaster of Delaware from 1790 to 1792 and was the head of the board of the Delaware Bank of Wilmington. He was involved in business ventures such as operating a cotton mill and running a machine shop, and was involved with attempts to improve the infrastructure of the state of Delaware in such areas as toll roads, canals, and bridges. He also served on the board of the College of Wilmington and showed concern for many other philanthropic activities. John Dickinson, 1732 to 1808. He lived for 20 years after the official ratification of the Constitution, but held no public office. He spent much of his time writing about politics and criticized the administration of President John Adams. He died in 1808 at the age of 75. Thomas Jefferson wrote, "A more estimable man or truer patriot could not have left us. It has been a great comfort to me to have retained his friendship to the last moment of his life." You know, most people don't understand the value of people who give them honest criticism without malice or whatnot. Just, look, man, you're wrong. This is not how that goes. But most people don't want to listen to people who criticize them. I don't mind you criticizing me. I welcome it. I just don't like that uncivilized, unjustified criticism. Do you understand? And so I correct you as you should be corrected, as you need to be corrected, for you've been listening to the wrong people. As it's written, the leaders of this people cause them to err. That fits Black people in America more than any other people on the planet. George Reed, 1733 to 1798. He served for 4 years as a United States Senator, 1789 to 1793. And because the first Chief Justice, and became the first Chief Justice of Delaware in 1793. Abraham Baldwin, 1754 to 1807. He served in the House of Representatives from 1789 to 1799 and was appointed for 2 terms to the United States Senate, 1799 to 1807. He died before completing his 2nd term. William Few, from 1748 to 1828. He was appointed as a United States Senator from Georgia, 1789, and was defeated for his seat in 1795. He moved to New York in 1799 and was elected to the state legislature in 1801. From 1804 to 1814, he was the director of the Manhattan Bank and the president of Citibank. Have you noticed that those men who was signing the Constitution, all of them had dedicated their life to public service? And now you're trying to put a man into the office of president that didn't dedicate his life to nothing but himself and knows nothing about public service. You remind me of that, they had the title of it, told everything. An old movie, I never saw it, I never looked at it. The title turned me off. Dumb and Dumber. Maryland, Daniel Carroll, 1730 to 1796. He served 1 term in the United States House of Representatives, 1789 to 1791, and was appointed by President George Washington to oversee the construction of the federal capitol on the Potomac River, Washington, D.C. is situated on one of his farms. Pardon me, let me read that again. It says, he was appointed by President George Washington, to oversee the construction of the federal capitol on the Potomac River. Washington, D.C. is situated on one of his farms. That's something, ain't it? Yeah. Daniel Jennifer of St. Thomas. He was also from Maryland, 1723 to 1790. He did not really take an active part in the development of the Constitution. He and the other delegate from Maryland oftentimes voted against each other. He did, however, campaign for the Constitution's ratification and afterwards retired from public life. James McHenry, from 1753 to 1816, after the convention, McHenry went back to his home state and served in various positions of the state legislature, 1789 to 1796, and was appointed Secretary of War by President George Washington, 1796 to 1800. He proved rather ineffectual in this position, and President John Adams called for his resignation in 1800. He retired from public office and in 1812 was stricken with paralysis in both legs. He was bedridden for the remainder of his life. Now, that was Maryland. Now, Massachusetts. Nathaniel Gorham, from 1738 to 1796. When the Constitutional Convention was finished, Gorham retired from public life. He got heavily into land speculation in New York, but his overindulgence eventually got him into deep financial trouble. He suffered from apoplexy and died a poor man in 1796. Rufus King, 1755 to 1827. He was a member of the Ratification Convention in Massachusetts, but moved to New York and became a United States Senator from 1789 to 1795, from 1813 to 1825. And he failed to win the Federalist Party's nomination for president in 1816, but was appointed minister to England in 1824. Now, New Hampshire. Nicholas Gilman, 1755 to 1814. He was elected to the United States House of Representatives from 1789 to 1797, and was a United States Senator from 1805 to 1814. John Langdon, 1741 to 1819. He served as a United States Senator for 12 years, 1789 to 1801, and served as governor of New Hampshire from 1805 to 1812, with the exception of the year 1809. Now, I want you to notice something. And this is not a boast, this is just an observation. Remember, I told you I had a 12th grade education. And I have asked some of you to come in here and read a scripture or something to me that graduated from college, and you were stumbling over words, and I had to correct you on words and whatnot, and you done had more education than me. If you would spend more time reading and less time being told what to think. You see, one thing that reading does for you, it makes you use your own thoughts about what you read. It makes you exercise your brain. That's why I look forward to our meetings. Okay, New Hampshire. Nicholas Gilman, 1755 to 1814. He was elected to the United States House of Representatives from 1789 to 1797 and was a United States Senator from 1805 to 1814. John Langdon, from 1741 to 1819. He served in the United States Senate as a United States Senator for 12 years, from 1789 to 1801, and served as governor of New Hampshire from 1805 to 1812, with the exception of the year 1809. New Jersey. David Brearley, 1745 to 1790. He lived only 3 years after the end of the Constitutional Convention. He was a main supporter of the Constitution at the New Jersey Ratifying Convention, and President Washington rewarded him with an appointment as a federal district judge. Brearley was active in the Masonic Order in New Jersey and the Society of the Cincinnati, an organization of former Revolutionary War officers. Jonathan Dayton, 1760 to 1824. He served in the United States House of Representatives from 1791 to 1799 and was chosen Speaker of the House for 4 years. He became a United States Senator in 1799 and from 1799 to 1805, and was a close acquaintance of Aaron Burr. Dayton was indicted in 1807 for treason, along with Burr, in a plot to combine Mexico and the Western territories of the United States. Dayton's case was never brought to trial. That's interesting. It says, William Livingston, 1723 to 1790. He helped in the ratification fight for the Constitution and served as the governor of New Jersey until his death in 1790. William Patterson, that's rich. 17, one of them, the middle one is one T, the last one is two T's. 1745 to 1806. He was appointed to the United States Senate from 1789 to 1790 and was also appointed by President George Washington as a Justice of the United States Supreme Court, 1793 until his death. New York, Alexander Hamilton, from 1755 to 1804. After the convention, Hamilton worked with John Jay and James Madison on a series of articles known as the Federalist Papers. As propaganda for the Constitution, he served as the first United States Secretary of the Treasury from 1789 to 1795. He retired to his law practice and was later appointed to the position of Major General from 1798 to 1800 during an impending war with France. When Hamilton helped defeat Aaron Burr's quest for the governorship of New York, Burr challenged Hamilton to a duel. He was killed by Burr on July 12, 1804. North Carolina, William Blount, 1749 to 1800. Although he signed the Constitution, that action was taken just to prove that he was present. He supported its ratification because it would help Western expansion, and he used various elected positions to gain land for his own economic advancement. Blount served as state senator from 1788 to 1790, governor of the territories south of Ohio River in 1790. He was president of the Tennessee Constitutional Convention in 1796, and as a United States Senator from Tennessee from 1796 to 1797. Blount was involved in a conspiracy for inciting the Creek and Cherokee Indians to collaborate with the British fleet in attacking Spanish Florida and Louisiana. Based upon these charges, Blount was impeached by the House of Representatives and expelled by the Senate in 1797. He returned to Tennessee and served in the state Senate. Richard D. Speight, 1758 to 1802. He was elected to 3 terms as governor of North Carolina, beginning in 1792, and was a major force in moving the capital from New Bern to Raleigh. He was elected a member of the United States House of Representatives from 1798 to 1801, and was killed in a duel by his successor in Congress, John Stanley, in 1802. Them boys was dueling quite a bit, wasn't they? And then let's see here. Hugh Williamson, 1735 to 1819. He was elected to 2 terms in the United States House of Representatives from 1789 to 1793, and then retired from public life. He spent many of his remaining years at the New York hospital, dedicating much of his time to the study of medicine. One of his chief interests was writing on the climate of North America. Pennsylvania, George Clymer, 1739 to 1813. He was elected to the United States House of Representatives in 1789 to 1791 and became involved in civic and cultural activities in and around Philadelphia. He served as the president of the Bank of Philadelphia. Thomas Fitzsimmons, 1741 to 1811. Fitzsimmons served as a member of the United States House of Representatives from 1789 to 1795 and strongly supported the financial plan of Secretary of the Treasury, Alexander Hamilton. When he left Congress, he spent the remainder of his life in private business and served as president of the Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce. Fitzsimmons was concerned with religious affairs, public education, and served as trustee of the University of Pennsylvania. Benjamin Franklin, from 1706 to 1790. At the same time that Franklin was attending the Constitutional Convention, he was also the president of the Pennsylvania Society for Promoting the Abolition of Slavery. 1787, Harvard, Yale, St. Andrews, William and Mary, and Oxford all granted him honorary degrees. He died in 1790 at the age of 84. And I'm just going to read the rest of their names. It says Jared Ingersoll, Thomas Mifflin, Gouverneur Morris, Robert Morris, James Wilson. And those were all from North Carolina, from Pennsylvania. South Carolina, Pierce Butler, Charles Pinckney, Charles Coatsworth Pinckney, John Rutledge. And so Rhode Island, it says Rhode Island did not send any delegates to the Constitutional Convention. Virginia, John Blair, James Madison, George Washington. Fascinating facts about the U.S. Constitution. The United States Constitution has 4,440 words. It is the oldest and the shortest written constitution of any major government in the world. Of the spelling errors in the Constitution, Pennsylvania, above the signers' names, is probably the most glaring. In other words, they didn't change nothing about it. They left it just like it was. Do you understand? As long as they knew what the word was, they didn't bother going in there trying to mess with it. Thomas Jefferson did not sign the Constitution. He was in France during the convention, where he served as the U.S. minister. John Adams was serving as the U.S. minister in Great Britain during the Constitutional Convention and did not attend either. The Constitution was penned by Jacob Shallis, a Pennsylvania General Assembly clerk, for $30, $683 today. Since 1952, the Constitution has been on display in the National Archives building in Washington, D.C. Currently, all 4 pages are displayed behind protective glass framed with titanium to preserve the parchment's quality. The cases contain argon gas and are kept at 67 degrees Fahrenheit with a relative humidity of 40%. Constitution Day is celebrated on September 17th, the anniversary of the day the framers signed that document. The Constitution does not set forth requirements for the right to vote. As a result, at the outset of the Union, only male property owners could vote. African Americans were not considered citizens, and women were excluded from the electoral process. Native Americans were not given the right to vote until 1924. James Madison, the father of the Constitution, was the first to arrive in Philadelphia for the Constitutional Convention. He arrived in February, 3 months before the convention began, bearing the blueprint for the new Constitution. Of the 42 delegates who attended most of the meetings, 39 actually signed the Constitution. Edmund Randolph and George Mason of Virginia and Eldridge Geary of Massachusetts refused to sign due in part to the lack of a Bill of Rights. When it came time for the states to ratify the Constitution, the lack of any Bill of Rights was the primary sticking point. The Great Compromise saved the Constitutional Convention and probably the Union. Authored by Connecticut delegate Roger Sherman, it called for proportional representation in the House and 1 representation per state in the Senate. This was later changed to 2. The compromise passed 5-4, with 1 state, Massachusetts, divided. Patrick Henry was elected as a delegate to the Constitutional Convention, but declined because he smelt a rat. Quote unquote. Patrick Henry said, "I smell a rat." Do you understand? You know, it's amazing how, as you look at all of these flawed people, you can see that there was a divine hand in putting this stuff together. Do you understand? Because in spite of the character flaws and stuff, it's kind of like if all of us to be honest, you say God made all this beautiful creation and still had time to think about a little worm like me. Ain't that something? Hey, you don't forget, that's how we started off, a little wiggly tail worm. Ain't that something? Anyway, let's see. Because of his poor health, Benjamin Franklin needed help to sign the Constitution. As he did so, tears streamed down his face. Gouverneur Morris was largely responsible for the wording of the Constitution, although there was a committee of style formed in September of 1787. The oldest person to sign the Constitution was Benjamin Franklin. He was 81. The youngest was Jonathan Dayton of New Jersey. He was 26. When the Constitution was signed, the United States population was 4 million people. 4 million people. Ain't that something? It is now more than 300 million. Philadelphia was the nation's largest city with 40,000 inhabitants. A proclamation by President George Washington and a congressional resolution established the first National Thanksgiving Day on November 26, 1789. Yeah, Thanksgiving Day. You know, that's my birthday, you know. It says the reason for the holiday was to give thanks for the new Constitution. The first time the formal term, the United States of America, was used was in the Declaration of Independence. It took 100 days to actually frame the Constitution. There was, now remember now, it's not but 4,000 and some words in it, but it took 100 days to put them together. Huh? Yeah. In other words, it wasn't done on no fly. There was initially a question as to how to address the president. The Senate proposed that he be addressed as His Highness, the President of the United States of America and protector of their liberties. Both the House of Representatives and the Senate compromised on the use of President of the United States. James Wilson originally proposed the president be chosen by popular vote, but the delegates agreed after 60 ballots on a system known as the Electoral College. Although there have been 500 proposed amendments to change it, this indirect system of electing the president is still intact. That's the last check and balance to make sure that the president, that position is as much safeguard on it as possible. Do you understand? George Washington and James Madison were the only presidents who signed the Constitution. In November of 1788, the Congress of the Confederation adjourned and left the United States without a central government until April 1789. That is when the first Congress under the new Constitution convened with its first quorum. James Madison was the only delegate to attend every meeting. He took detailed notes of the various discussions and debates that took place during the convention. The journal that he kept during the Constitutional Convention was kept secret until after he died. It, along with other papers, was purchased by the government in 1837 at a price of $30,000. That would be $591,000 today. The journal was published in 1840. Although Benjamin Franklin's mind remained active, his body was deteriorating. He was in constant pain because of gout and having a stone in his bladder, and he could barely walk. He would enter the convention hall in a sedan chair carried by 4 prisoners from the Walnut Street Jail in Philadelphia. As Benjamin Franklin left the Pennsylvania State House after the final meeting of the Constitutional Convention on September 17, 1787, he was approached by the wife of the mayor of Philadelphia. She was curious as to what the new government would be. And Franklin replied, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it." On March 24th, 1788, a popular election was held in Rhode Island to determine the ratification status of the new Constitution. The vote was 237 in favor and 2,945 opposed. The members of the first Congress of the United States included 54 who were delegates to the Constitutional Convention or delegates to the various state ratifying conventions. The number also included 7 delegates who opposed ratification. Vermont ratified the Constitution on January 10th, 1791, even though it had not yet become a state. The word democracy does not appear once in the Constitution. There was a proposal at the Constitutional Convention to limit the standing army for the country to 5,000 men. George Washington sarcastically agreed with this proposal as long as a stipulation was added that no invading army could number more than 3,000. I would have liked to met him. He had even in his humor, he knew how to correct people without fussing at them. Yeah, I'll go along with that as long as we got a standing rule that no invading army can be over 3,000. Show you how foolish they sound. But anyway, John Adams referred to the Constitution as the greatest single effort of national deliberation that the world has ever seen. And George Washington wrote to the Marquis de Lafayette that the Constitution, appears to me then little short of a miracle. The Pennsylvania, when you look at some of the back and forths that they was having, it is a miracle that it came out like it did. Huh? It says the Pennsylvania State House, where the Constitutional Convention took place, was where George Washington was appointed the commander of the Continental Army in 1775, and where the Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776. It was also where the Articles of Confederation were adopted as our first Constitution in 1781. To amend the Constitution, a proposal must gain the support of 2/3 of the House and the Senate, and 3/4 of the states. As a result of the thousands of proposed amendments, only 27 have passed. Amendments must be proposed either by a 2/3 vote in Congress or by constitutional convention. Such a convention can only be held if 2/3 of the states' legislatures support it. Well, they put some rules on that, didn't they? And that's very well they should. During an event to celebrate the Constitution's sesquicentennial in 1937, Harry F. Wilhelm recited the entire document through the newly added 21st Amendment from memory. He then obtained a job in the sesquicentennial, yeah, that's that here. Sesquicentennial mailroom. Y'all, excuse me, if some of y'all know how to pronounce that, you feel free to help me. These fellas have some words. I ain't never heard that word before. It says, dates to remember. The Constitution, May 25th, 1787. The Constitutional Convention opens with a quorum of 7 states in Philadelphia to discuss revising the Articles of Confederation. Eventually, all states but Rhode Island are represented. September 17th, 1787, all 12 states delegations approved the Constitution. 39 delegates signed it of the 42 present, and the convention formally adjourns. June 21st, 1788, the Constitution becomes effective for the ratifying states when New Hampshire is the 9th state to ratify it. February 4th, 1789, the first presidential election takes place, but the results will not be known until April 6th. March 4th, 1789, the first Congress under the Constitution convenes in New York City. April 6, 1789, George Washington is elected the first president of the United States under the Constitution with 69 electoral votes. John Adams is elected vice president with 34 votes. They used to have to elect both the president and the vice president. And it says, April 30th, 1789, George Washington is inaugurated as the first president of the United States. June 8th, 1789, James Madison introduces the proposed Bill of Rights in the House of Representatives. September 24th, 1789, Congress establishes a Supreme Court, 13 district courts, 3 ad hoc circuit courts, and the position of Attorney General. September 25th, 1789, Congress approves 12 amendments and sends them to the states for ratification. February 2nd, 1790, the Supreme Court convenes for the first time. December 15th, 1791, Virginia ratifies the Bill of Rights, and 10 of the 12 proposed amendments become part of the U.S. Constitution. The Constitution of the United States. The signing of the Constitution took place on September 17, 1787, at the Pennsylvania State House, now called Independence Hall in Philadelphia. The preamble: we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Article 1. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and House of Representatives. The House of Representatives, Section 2. The House of Representatives shall be composed of members chosen every second year by the people of the several states, and the electors in each state shall have the qualifications requisite for electors of the most numerous branch of the state legislature. No person shall be a representative who shall not have attained to the age of 25 years and be 7 years a citizen of the United States, and who shall not, when elected, be an inhabitant of that state in which he shall be chosen. And we're down to the nitty-gritty now. And it says, representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within this union, according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons, including those bound to service for a term of years, and excluding Indians not taxed, 3/5 of all other persons. That's talking about us. And it says, note, changed by Section 2 of the 14th Amendment, the actual enumeration shall be made within 3 years after the first meeting of the Congress of the United States, and within every subsequent term of 10 years, in such manner as they shall by law direct. The number of representatives shall not exceed 1 for every 30,000, but each state shall have at least 1 representative, and until such enumeration shall be made, the state of New Hampshire shall be entitled to choose 3, Massachusetts 8, Rhode Island and Province plantations 1, Connecticut 5, New York 6, New Jersey 4, Pennsylvania 8, Delaware 1, Maryland 6, Virginia 10, North Carolina 5, South Carolina 5, and Georgia 3. When vacancies happen in the representation from any state, the executive authority thereof shall issue writs of election to fill such vacancies. The House of Representatives shall choose their speaker and other officers, and shall have the sole power of impeachment. Section 3, the Senate. The Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state, chosen by the legislature thereof. Note, changed by Section 1 of the 17th Amendment. For 6 years, and each senator shall have 1 vote. Immediately after they shall be assembled in consequence of the first election, they shall be divided as equally as may be into 3 classes. The seats of the senators of the first class shall be vacated at the expiration of the 2nd year, of the second class at the expiration of the 4th year, and of the 3rd class at the expiration of the 6th year, so that 1/3 may be chosen every 2nd year. And if vacancies happen in resignation or otherwise during the recess of the legislature of any state, the executive thereof may make temporary appointments until the next meeting of the legislature, which shall then fill such vacancies. Note, that's been changed by Clause 2 of the 17th Amendment. Person shall be a senator who shall not have attained to the age of 30 years and been 9 years a citizen of the United States, and who shall not, when elected, be an inhabitant of that state for which he shall be chosen. The Vice President of the United States shall be President of the Senate, but shall have no vote unless they be equally divided. He will break the tie. Shall choose their own officers and also a president pro tem in the absence of the vice president, or when he shall exercise the office of president of the United States. The Senate shall have the sole power to try all impeachments. When sitting for that purpose, they shall be on oath or affirmation. When the President of the United States is tried, the Chief Justice shall preside, and no person shall be convicted without the concurrence of 2/3 of the members that are present. Judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further than to removal from office and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. But the party convicted shall nevertheless be liable and subject to indictment, trial, judgment, and punishment according to law, but not according to no impeachment. All they can do is put him out. Then he can go through trial like everybody else if that be the case. Section 4, the times, organization of Congress. The times, places, and manner of, now this is the Constitution I'm reading now. The times, places, and manners of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. But the Congress may at any time by law make or alter such regulations, except as to the place of choosing senators. The Congress shall assemble at least once in every year, and such meeting shall be on the first Monday in December. Note, changed by Section 2 of the 20th Amendment, unless they shall by law appoint a different day. Section 5, each house shall be the judge of the elections, returns, and qualifications of its own members, and a majority of each shall constitute a quorum to do business. But a smaller number may adjourn from day to day and may be authorized to compel the attendance of absent members in such manner and under such penalties as each house may provide. Each house may determine the rules of its proceedings, punish its members for disorderly behavior, and with the concurrence of 2/3, expel a member. And that's, the one that hollered out, "You lie," they should have expelled him. And it said, each house shall keep a journal of its proceedings, and from time to time publish the same, excepting such parts as may in their judgment require secrecy. In other words, national security. And it says, and the yeas and nays of the members of either house or on any question shall, at the desire of 1/5 of those present, be entered on the journal. I don't know how people voted. That's how you know whether you want to keep them in there. Under the right to the public's freedom of information. Yeah, the public got a right to know what the legislators is voting on and how each one of them voted. So neither house during the session of Congress shall, without the consent of the other, adjourn for more than 3 days, nor to any other place than that in which the two houses shall be sitting. The senators and representatives shall receive a compensation for their services, to be ascertained by law and paid out of the Treasury of the United States. They shall in all cases except treason, felony, and breach of the peace be privileged from arrest during their attendance at the session of their respective houses, and in going to and returning from the same, and for any speech or debate in either house, they shall not be questioned in any other place. In other words, you don't follow them out of there and call yourself getting on them about something that they was talking about in there. All that discussion stays in the house. What is it say? What's in Vegas stays in Vegas, and what's in the House of Representatives stays there. And it says, no senator or representative shall, during the time for which he was elected, be appointed to any civil office under the authority of the United States, which shall have been created, or the emoluments whereof shall have been increased during such time. And no person holding any office under the United States shall be a member of either house during his continuance in office. All bills for raising revenue, this is the section 7, all bills for raising revenue shall originate in the House of Representatives, but the Senate may propose or concur with amendments as on other bills. Every bill which shall have passed the House of Representatives and the Senate shall become a law, be presented to the President of the United States, hence the term Chief Executive. And it shall be presented to the President of the United States. If he approve, he shall sign it. But if not, he shall return it with his objections to the House in which it shall have originated, who shall enter the objections at large on their journal and proceed to reconsider it. If after such reconsideration 2/3 of that House shall agree to pass the bill, it shall be sent together with the objections to the other House, by which it shall likewise be reconsidered, and if approved by 2/3 of that House, it shall become a law. They can override his veto, but it's going to take 2/3 of them on both the Senate and the House of Representatives. Then it says cases. The votes of both houses shall be determined by yeas and nays, and the names of the persons voting for and against the bill shall be entered on the journal of each house respectively. If any bill shall not be returned by the President within 10 days, Sundays excepted, after it shall have been presented to him, the same shall be a law, in like manner as if he had signed it, unless Congress, by their adjournment, prevent its return, in which case it shall not be a law. Every order, resolution, or vote to which the concurrence of the Senate and House of Representatives may be necessary, except on a question of adjournment, shall be presented to the President of the United States, and before the same shall take effect, shall be approved by him, or being disapproved by him, shall be repassed by 2/3 of the Senate and House of Representatives, according to the rules and limitations prescribed in the case of a bill. Powers granted to Congress. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. You notice, that's why when the Affordable Care Act passed and they tried to say that it was unconstitutional, it promotes the general welfare of the United States people, doesn't it? But then it was lawful. But anyway, it says, for the general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. To borrow money on the credit of the United States, that's something else Congress has the power to do. They can borrow money on the credit of the United States to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes, It's just like when they keep trying to throw up a smoke screen of the president and NAFTA. The president is not the one that passed NAFTA. Congress did that. But they know the people are ignorant. They know we are ignorant of it. But now this is telling you who had the power to do that. It says to borrow money. This is Congress. They have the authority to borrow money on the credit of the United States to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes. Number 4, to establish a uniform rule of naturalization. And you know what that's they could have been established some kind of uniform rule for immigration. That's Congress's job. Why don't they do their job? Then it says, and uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcies throughout the United States. To coin money, they have number 5. They can print money and they can make coins. To coin money, regulate the value thereof and of foreign coin, and fix the standard of weights and measures. Number 6, to provide for the punishment of counterfeiting the securities and current coin of the United States. Number 7, to establish post offices and post roads, toll roads, and not toll roads, but they, you know how they changed the rural routes to numbers and stuff? And it says to establish post offices and post roads, to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive rights to their respective writings and discoveries. That's patent laws, right? Number 9, to constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. In other words, the lower courts. To define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas and offenses against the laws of nation, the law of nations. Number 11, to declare war, grant letters of marque, and make rules concerning captures on land and on water. Here's the Geneva Convention and all of that. And so number 12, to raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money to that use shall be for a longer term than 2 years. To provide and maintain a navy. To make that's number 13, number 14, to make rules for the government and regulation of the land and naval forces. Number 15, to provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, to suppress insurrections and repel invasions. Remember, they tried to suggest that the founding fathers was put the Second Amendment to right to bear arms so that the people could fight the government if they had to. That's just the opposite of what the founding fathers said a militia is for. The militia is to help the government, if necessary, to help the already forces of America to put down insurrections. Then it says, to provide for organizing, arming, listen good now, to provide for calling forth the militia, to execute the laws of the Union, to suppress insurrections, and repel invasions. Don't say nothing about fighting their own government. Did it? Okay. Number 16, to provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia, and for governing such part of them as may be employed in the service of the United States, reserving to the states, respectively, the appointment of officers. A militia is not some private group. A militia is not just a private group, it is a private state-sponsored group that even the states appoint their officers. According to this. Then it says, and the authority of training the militia according to the discipline prescribed by Congress. A militia you ain't no part of no militia just having a gun in your house. It's a civilian trained army. Then it says, 17, to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district, not exceeding 10 miles square, as may by cession of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of the government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state in which the same shall be, for the erection of forts, magazines is another word for army, armories, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. And number 18, to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers, and all other powers vested by this Constitution in the government of the United States, or in any department or officer thereof. Powers forbidden to Congress. The migration or importation of such persons as any of the states now existing shall think proper to admit, not be prohibited by the Congress prior to the year 1808. But a tax or duty may be imposed on such importation, not exceeding $10 for each person. The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall be suspended unless when in case of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it. No bill of attainder or ex post facto law shall be passed. No capitulation or other direct tax shall be laid unless in proportion to the census or enumeration herein before directed to be taken. Note, see the 16th Amendment. Number 5, no tax or duty shall be laid on articles exported from any state. Number 6, no preference shall be given by any regulation of commerce or revenue to the ports of one state over those of another, nor shall vessels bound to or from one state be obliged to enter, clear, or pay duties in another. No money shall be drawn from the treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law, and a regular statement and account of the receipts and the expenditures of all public money shall be published from time to time. No title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall without the consent of Congress, except of any present emolument, office, or title of any kind whatsoever from any king, prince, or foreign state. Section 10, powers forbidden to states. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. No state shall, without the consent of the Congress, lay any imposts or duties on imports or exports, except what may be absolutely necessary for executing its inspection laws. And the net produce of all duties and imposts laid by any state on imports or exports shall be for the use of the Treasury of the United States. And all such laws shall be subject to the revision and control of the Congress. No state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay any duty of tonnage, keep troops or ships of war in time of peace, enter into any agreement or compact with another state or with a foreign power in war, unless actually invaded or in such imminent danger as will not admit of delay. And you can't help it if somebody attack you inside of your state or whatnot, and you ain't got time to wait on Congress to do nothing, then you can act. Other than that, ain't no state declare war. Has to do that. The executive branch. Section 1. The executive power shall be vested in a president of the United States of America. He shall hold his office during the term of 4 years, and together with the vice president chosen for the same term, be elected as follows. Each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature. Tell you what, as we've been going for 3 hours, now we into the Constitution, and I'm reading it. I left off on page 38 of this little book, and I will take that on up with you some more, I guess tomorrow. If I don't take it up tomorrow, I'll take it up with you Saturday. So I may have something else I want to teach on tomorrow. But did anyone have any questions before I let you go? You know, when you are making judgments, you, especially that young man that, made that remark about me reading the history of some of the founding fathers of America, the disparaging comments. You see the difference in me and other people who claim to be following the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I didn't just claim to be his follower, right? When he'd be speaking, I was listening. How can I follow him if I didn't hear what he said? I want you to hear this. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I learned this in the military, that whenever you have a commanding officer, the most important order he gave you was the last one that he gave you. Because many times, as with all war and everything else, war is always a fluid situation. If you could be on both sides, you could order it's not so fluid then, because you know what the other side gonna be doing because you telling them what to do. Do you understand? But if you are told to go and do a maneuver or whatnot, and the enemy is not where you thought it was, and then that's what I mean by fluid. What if there's no enemy over there where you was? Then you can either report that, or maybe the one who gave you the order may have found that out and say, oh, I don't want you to go over there. I want you to turn around and go here. But then you start hollering, well, you just told me to go over here. Well, yours is not to reason why. Yours is but to obey my orders. Huh? In the Marine Corps, they simply said, yours is not the reason why. Yours is but to do or die trying. So the last order that your CO gives is the first to follow, because it negates the rest. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us a lesson. And if some of you that was following him, I don't know how many people listening now, maybe you got bored, serious matters sometimes bores a lot of us, so we spend our time joking and laughing all the time. When you talk to us about something serious, we go to sleep on you. That's not just with black people either. Talk bores children. So anyone with a child's mind gets bored. You notice Donald Trump, when he has to talk about serious things, he said, it's boring. You notice that? He got a child's mind. But anyway, and many people, they say, well, Hillary Clinton is too, she's boring. She just, because she's so serious. That woman had a rough life. And having a rough life, it's just, I guess you can tell I've had a rough life. Things that make me laugh make other people wonder what are you laughing about? That's how I can relate to Miss Clinton. A lot of times she'd be laughing and people think she's making some, sometimes people, when you see people, every time I laugh, it don't mean that I think something is funny. Sometimes it's laughable to think that someone could be so ignorant. But anyway, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was teaching us, I want one of y'all to answer this question for me. Are Are there any Muslims other than righteous? I want you to unmute your phone and answer that for me. Are there any Muslims other than righteous? Brother, my phone ain't working. Let's see. Have they muted my line or what? It's not letting me check to see how many people in the room. I'll ask the question again. Are there any Muslims other than righteous? Now, all you people out there talking about you got the lessons and everything. Well, the answer he gave us was, I beg your pardon, I've never heard of one. When the Honorable Elijah Muhammad uses the term Muslim, he's talking about righteous people. He said there are no Muslims other than righteous. If you other than righteous, you're not a Muslim. Now, with that in mind, I want you to listen to this.
The Chicago white people for making it possible for us to obtain the country club, for making it possible for us to get in such position where we can prove ourselves worthy of this position. Yes, sir. We thank them. They have did us a great favor. Yes, sir. I don't think that we have never to do but to honor and thank them for putting us in such position. Yes, sir. Go ahead, this is their house. We are here teaching the truth. Yes, sir. They're not objecting to you teaching the truth. As we have white Muslims in America. And lots of them. As we have white Muslims in America. And lots of them. As we have white Muslims in America. And lots of them.
Yes, we have white Muslims in America. And lots of them. I don't understand how you could listen to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and if you really heard him, what he said, he was asked, which book do you believe in? Do you believe in the Bible or do you teach just strictly from the Holy Quran? And when the question was asked, the messenger said, no, we believe in both of them. We made both of them. He said, the white man ain't made no Bible. King James didn't make no Bible. He said, we makes the Bible and we makes the Holy Quran. And, you know, at the time we sitting there listening, and like children, they hear their parents say, we did this and we did that, and their children start thinking that they and that we. But the we that made the Bible and the Holy Quran is the messengers of God, whom you call prophets, and God. Jesus, Moses, David, Solomon, Muhammad, Jeremiah, Ezekiel. That's the we he was talking about. We made the Bible, and we made the Holy Quran. And we believe in all of them. And when we believe in them and carry into practice what they taught, then we are called righteous. You know, Abraham, he didn't have no scripture, but because he trusted God, he believed in God and trusted God, it was accounted to him as righteousness. Do you understand? So when the messenger, he told us there's no, are there any Muslims other than righteous? He said, I beg your pardon, I never heard of any. Never heard of one. Well, if he said there are white Muslims in America, then he wouldn't call them Muslims if they wasn't. And he said there's lots of them. And they do desire to do the right thing. They desire to be righteous. They desire to be right. And so it is for just having the desire in a world full of evil, for you to desire to do the right thing. Allah he writes you down with the righteous. Do you understand? And so the messenger, he didn't just say that there are white Muslims in America. He told us how to deal with them. Now let me let you hear him. Because it's not me that's the hypocrite. You're the hypocrite. Just listen.
In the truth, as we have white Muslims in America, and lots of them. We have them all over the world. Yes, sir. And they recognize and respect you. That's right. Go ahead. You must recognize and respect it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead. That's right. Go ahead. You must recognize and respect it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead. Right. Go ahead. You must recognize and respect it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Is to recognize someone. It is to understand them. And then you're upset with me because I'm reading and getting some understanding of the founding fathers and the people who framed up the Constitution and whatnot. These men didn't try to build a government. They built one. And until we do what they did, how can you say that we are their equal? An intelligent man does not look at the wheel and think that he needs to go reinvent the wheel. He studies the one that's there and tries to make it more perfect. The preamble to the Constitution shows that someone had some wisdom among the founding fathers, because it says that they wasn't trying to make a government that from scratch. They was looking at governments that had already existed. And they took the time to analyze what was working, what looked like it worked and what didn't. And then they began to try to do something better. So they started off, not we the aristocrats, but we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. We want to make the wheel a little better. So, I mean, you know, if the messenger told me, he said, now remember, respect the man, for he still has his flag. And remember, you are honoring a ruler. You're respecting a ruler. I'm a ruler. And I have told this present ruler that his world is messed up. I've told him that the way that he has ruled over us has been with injustice, and he has been a corrupt ruler. The first thing someone does when you tell them that they are messing up something, and justifiably so, they say, well, can you do any better? If you sitting down over there begging and criticizing, and most of the time they won't even pay you no attention. Because compared to what you're doing, he could tell you, well, I'm doing better than you. So, the messenger, he told me what to do. He said, they recognize and respect you. You must recognize and respect them. And the more that I study how this country is set up, the more I respect the people who set it up, because I see wisdom in it. I mean, what looks like haphazard stuff going on to you, they have a Department of Agriculture, and there are states that are the basket of America. And while they feeding America, they also feeding the rest of the world. They have Department of Commerce and all these kind of things. You and I on the Late Show. You can't talk about building a nation that's going to set the example for the rest of the world, and you don't know the first thing about how things work. How you going to improve on an engine, and you don't know nothing about engines? So you're going to go start all the way from scratch. You already got engines working that are present. And you want to go back to the T model? Not me. All good has but one source, and that is God. Telling you, man, on a garbage truck, dumping garbage and whatnot, and you say he stinks. But without him doing that job, your whole community would be stinking. And when I really started to understand, when the messenger said that about white people and blaming them for being devils, he said, I don't get angry with them, the way they rule and what they teach. It goes without saying, he said, I don't get angry with them anymore. Because I remember one time he said, I'm already angry with them. And Allah said that I don't have to get angry with him. He already been angry with him. And, so he don't have to get angry with him. But he didn't have nothing to fight with. So I'm going to give him something to fight with, and I'm going to fight with him. But in 74, he said, I don't get angry with them, the way they rule and what they teach. He said, how in the world are they going to teach us away from the God of reality? If they teach us the truth of God, then they can't rule over us. They'd be giving the rulership away back to the one who gave it to them. So if they get to rule, they have to take us out of the reality of God. He said, because we've got the reality. He said, every time you look at a black man, you look at God. And then he went on to say that in this same lecture that's part of his last sermon, what you just heard, and in that same sermon, he said these words that I'm saying now. And this is, it was our kind that made him. Yeah, a black man made white people and also left the knowledge that they have been filled with and acting on. It was us who taught them to do that. And then when you go to the scriptures, both scriptures says that even Iblis, he asked Allah in so many words, he said, my Lord, you have made me erring. You made me to go wrong. And I'm going to make evil fair seeming to them on earth, and I'm going to cause all of them to deviate. Now, what surprised him was when the Lord told him, that's the right way with me. He said, I'm going to cause them all to deviate except your servants. From among them, that's the prophets. And the Lord told him, he said, that's the right way with me. You go ahead. And whosoever of them will follow you, I will certainly fill hell with them all. The Bible, the Lord, the sons of God, remember, it says that whosoever received him, he gave them power to become what? That's in the first chapter of John. As many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God. All of the messengers of God received the word of God, and they became the sons of God. Then there was a day, not just S-O-N, but S-U-N's too. There was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves. before the Lord. This is the Sabbath day. And they now, the understanding of what they had has been presented to me, in a book. And it says, and Satan came also among them to present himself. Nobody's hidden now. And the Lord said unto Satan, whence comest thou? And Satan said, from going to and fro in the earth and from walking up and down in it. Your adversary, the devil, goeth to and fro and up and down, seeking whom he may devour. And so when Satan presented himself, the Lord asked him, where are you coming from? And then the Lord asked him another question. He said, have you considered my servant Job over there? That he's a perfect and upright man that fears God and forbids evil. And Satan said, yeah, but does he fear God for naught? You've blessed the work of his hands. You put a hedge around his house and gave him everything. Take it from him and he'll curse you to your face. And the Lord told him, all that he have is in your power. Save his life. And I'm giving you permission to take his life. So Satan was made. The mind that we put in white people to go out conquering and doing all of the stuff he's been doing was put in him for a reason. Just like the man that you hire to do your trash. And you don't want him in your house because he's dirty and don't smell too good. But you heard those saying it's a dirty job. But somebody had to do it. And so this is the day where we find out that all of those men, the prophets and Satan, the scripture called them all the sons of God. Is that right? There was a day that the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. And who came to? And so, the lights of God. And I'm going to make evil fast aiming to him. And the Lord, Satan got surprised because the Lord took, that's the right way with me. Meaning I put that in you for you to go do that. Do you understand? So it was a dirty job. But somebody had to do it in order to have evil and good, the two conspicuous ways, but not just that, but the knowledge of both. For how are you going to resist evil if you don't know evil when you see it? But having 6,000 years worth of it, I think we can recognize what it is now, right? What do you think? Yes. Okay. Now, the understanding of goodness is being shared with you. So now you understand evil. Now we want to know who have decided that they love evil and who is hungry and thirsty for righteousness. Since it's been 6,000 years since we've seen any. He said, well, Jesus brought the teachings of righteousness, but Jesus didn't bring no righteousness. No prophet brought righteousness. That's why when people call Jesus good, he said, why are you calling me good? There ain't none good but one. And that is God. And then Isaiah, he put the nail in that coffin. Isaiah said, but we are all as an unclean thing. And all our righteousness is as filthy rags. in the eyesight of the Lord. I haven't seen nothing that any of you are practicing that resembles righteousness. Nothing. I look how you acting. It's like the young man came in here. He probably think he's a Muslim, and yet he condemns white people for disrespecting us, but he don't condemn himself for saying disrespectful things about them. I think all of you got a lot to think about after tonight. And I'm going to warn you too. Children, you love your family, you love the people that you claim you love. You better tell them to get in here and listen to me. You know, I think about people who call laying down in the bed, a man laying down in the bed with a woman or whatnot, and they say they're making love. No, what you actually doing is that's make-believe love. That's not love. That's a natural biological function that you done convinced yourself that that's love. Let me show you something. Just give me a minute. You got time. You be here. Let me see here. See if I can find.
Faster, Diego, faster!
Give up, can we? Come on, girls. But we don't even know where to start.
True love doesn't just fall from trees, you know?
Pardon me? I'm embarrassed to say I don't know where I am.
In King Stefan's castle.
This is where I meant to be. Odd that, I can't recall how I got here.
Why have you come?
My father sent me to see the king.
Who is your father?
King John of Ulster. Aurora.
He knows her.
Why is she sleeping?
She's trapped in an enchantment. Isn't she beautiful?
Most beautiful girl I've ever seen.
Do you want to kiss her?
Very much.
Go on then.
I feel right about it. I barely know her. We've only met once.
Haven't you ever had love at first sight? Kiss her. Go on.
An enchantment, you say?
Kiss her! You didn't do it properly. It's supposed to be true love's kiss. Certainly he was the one.
What are you doing?
We have to keep looking.
What are you
I will not ask your forgiveness, because what I have done to you is unforgivable. I was so lost in hatred and revenge. Sweet woman, you stole what was left of my heart, and now I've lost you forever. I swear, no harm will come to you as long as I live. And not a day shall pass that I don't miss your smile. Hello, Godmother.
Yeah, and little fairy tales and stuff. See, they know what love is, and it ain't lust. And it don't happen at no first sight. It comes from, interaction and, understanding. When you love somebody, you're there for them. Not for what you can get out of them, but for what you can give to them, for what you can do for them. So, this world has taught us lies about it, a whole lot of things. But I have found that in science fiction, science is truth. Fiction, well, fiction is a lie. Truth in a fictional tale. And so,
Brother, you're breaking up very bad.
yeah. Well, sorry about that. I know I got my phone where it's supposed to be, so I don't know why it would be breaking up. Ain't much I can do about that. But as I find little things like that, I find truth everywhere. That's because the truth is my God. And my God is omnipresent in everybody and in everything. And you all who pay attention, one day you will realize that what you've been looking for is standing here. If you've really been looking for the coming of the Lord, found him you have. So I'm going to put a pin in it there. As the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told me, that's what I'm doing. I'll let you hear it one more time and then I'm going to close out.
And lots of them. The truth, yes, sir. They're not objecting to you teaching the truth. As we have white Muslims in America. And lots of them. We have them all over the world. Yes, sir. And they recognize and respect you. That's right. Go ahead. You must recognize and respect it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead. Yes. You don't disrespect people that is trying to respect you. Yes, sir. I remember the last time that I was out to the airport. They let me and my followers get on first. Now remember that flag is still flying over America. Yes, sir. Honor and respect the man. Yes, sir. Because he still has his flag. There's much that can be entertained between them and us. In that way of respect. Yes, sir. We don't have to get up to try to make fun of them just because you have ruined yourself. And now you have ruined them. That's right. Just remember that they show you respect after you have ruined yourself. Show them respect too. Because when you didn't know yourself, you didn't respect yourself, nor anyone else. We used to disgrace ourselves and them too. That's right. Because we didn't know ourselves. Yes, sir. But now we respect ourselves and we respect it. Yes, sir. Praise be to God. Yes, sir. You go out there disrespecting the honor of this land. They are known as long as they're in power. Yes, sir. I think you will be showing disrespect for the honor that has been conferred on you, yes, sir, and me by God. Yes, sir. Thank you, dear Holy Father. Yes, sir. Respect to everybody. Everybody will respect you. Yes. Thank you.
So, regardless of what you think about me, little brother, is to please Almighty God Allah. And if you are displeased, well, that's irrelevant to me. Yes.
He did come back and say he said he didn't disrespect.
Well, I hope he didn't mean no disrespect, because I didn't mean no disrespect in correcting him. But he been listening to the wrong people. Those people who got you running around here disrespecting white people, they are not Muslims. That's not a Muslim. A Muslim is a righteous person. A Muslim is a person that you don't have to fear for your life, your property, nor anything that is yours. You don't have to fear harm coming to you in the presence of a Muslim. And anyone who claims to be a Muslim and frightens you by their presence, you see, nobody, you don't run into nobody that say that they fear danger from me. I ain't here to hurt nobody. I'm here to try to stop you from hurting yourself and from hurting each other. And if you listen to me, I'll take that fight out of you. Replace it with peace. So, you stop listening to all these people out here, getting you all riled up and worked up, trying to get you to go do harm to somebody. Go get them guns back to the people that you throw them in, beat them till they can't be used no more, and throw them in the garbage can. You don't need no gun. I don't need no gun to protect myself. Allah will protect me and he will protect you. Make them take the gun and shoot yourself. Irvin. So don't worry about it. So I've tried my best to get all of you to take the word of God into you so that it can make changes in you. You don't want that? Well, okay. Right on. I ain't gonna have to put up with you pretty soon. So, anybody got a question they want to ask me before I let you go?
Excuse me, Son of Man.
Yes.
What was the reason for the creation of the devil?
So that we could learn by experience that evil is not the way we should try to live. And he has shown us all of the, you can't even think of nothing evil that ain't going on in this world. So you don't have to wonder where it leads to. Just look at the way the world is right now. That's where evil have led us to. So naturally, if you got fed up with this, you ought to be good and hungry and thirsty for righteousness. Well, then I'm on time, because that's what I'm here to fill you with. Blessed are they that didn't fall in love with wickedness, but do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Well, how are they going to be filled? Blessed are they that are invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb. Well, Allah told me to eat up the book and then feed it to you. Speak with his words. Son of Man speaks. So that's what I'm doing. So Allah have given given America, especially, a period of grace to give time for me to gather the righteous that's in America and make one brotherhood out of us. Even that song was prophetic. America the Beautiful. Yeah. And God shed his grace on thee. We beheld his glory as the glory of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. God shed his grace on thee to crown your good with brotherhood. From sea to shining sea. Yep. I got a call from a young Caucasian today asking me questions. He told me he was a Christian and whatnot. And he wanted to know what the difference in the Nation of Islam and the new Nation of Islam. And I told him the difference between Jerusalem and New Jerusalem. And he asked me about the Jews. Do I hate the Jews? I told him no. The Holy Quran says, take not the Jews and Christians for friends, for they are friends of each other. And whoever among you takes them for friends, surely he is one of them. But it didn't mean what people think it meant. For he defined friend. He said, you are my friend if you do whatsoever I command you. And so that meant to me when Allah said, take the Jews and the Christians, don't take them for friends. It means don't follow you in the way that you do. Jesus said the same thing. He said the scribes and Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Therefore, do all that they bid you, but do not after their works. Don't follow them. Don't obey them in their deeds. And so I don't take the Christians and Jews for my friends. I invite them to stop following their own ways and come and follow the right way that Allah laid out in the Holy Bible and the Holy Quran and in the Torah. I should say the Torah, the Gospel, and the Holy Quran. And if they truly believe in those books, they will believe in me. But this world, they have their natural understanding and they try to put their natural understanding on the spiritual book, and they done got them all in trouble. So they're in a terrible mess now. And if they don't listen to me, soon they're not going to be here. That's the time coming where you're going, you see this kind of stuff escalating. People shooting their family and then killing themselves. You just don't know what you done started. You think that you declare war and his prophets and his teachings? What a fool you are. But anyway, I'm going to stop now. And we'll take up more of the Constitution probably tomorrow. So, I'm just doing what I was told. The messenger, he said, respect everybody. He said, remember, they recognize and respect you after you've learned yourself. I know who I am now. That young man knew I was the Son of Man. When he called me, he respected that. He can call up here talking crazy to me. And I respected him. Just because you have some authority don't mean that you have to be looking down on people. That is the epitome of foolishness. To look down on people who look up to you. Anyway, may Allah bless us, keep us safe, and in our right minds. I look forward to talking with you again tomorrow, if it pleases Allah. May Allah's. Assalamu alaikum.